Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here. And we broadcast 2 hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Captain John Regan's with us. Welcome, Captain John Regan. Yeah? So it's just me? So where's Captain John Regan? Well, let me just do a quick check here. I'm 243 milliseconds delayed, so that looks good. Audio metering looks good. Connection looks good. So where's Captain John Regan? Well, while we're looking for Captain John Regan, let me share with you an interesting story. So this is from thenextweb.com, thenextweb.com. BMW remotely locked a vehicle to trap a thief inside the car he allegedly stole. So here's what the article says. Auto thieves ought to think twice before jacking a brand new BMW vehicle unless they're willing to risk getting trapped inside the stolen car. So can you imagine that? So Seattle police reportedly received assistance from carmaker BMW to apprehend the criminal by remotely tracking and locking him inside the very same vehicle he stole. And this is from CNET, CNET. So, John, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I can hear you. I'm just telling the story about how this guy allegedly stole a BMW, a new BMW, and the Seattle Police Department contacted BMW and let them know about this vehicle being stolen. And so BMW locks this guy inside the vehicle. And, of course, they apprehended the alleged thief. Interesting. So my question, some people would say, boy, that's great. Well, my question is, what happens if the police department says, Vin Finelli's vehicle has been stolen, and we want you to lock him inside, or lock whoever's behind the wheel inside that vehicle while we get our snipers in position. And it happens to be Vin Finelli in the vehicle, in his own vehicle. How about that? So I don't want a vehicle where they can do this. So just a thought. So my power locks, well, if I don't reach over and slide that lever on the door, there's no power because they're manual locks, manual windows, manual locks. So as far as me being in my truck, they can't lock me in my truck because it's got manual locks. There's no assistance that they can render to lock me in my vehicle, nor keep me from putting the windows down. So imagine that. Imagine, John, are you concerned about that kind of technology? Because I really am.
In so many ways. And I guess it was a couple of years ago, we talked about, it was an elderly man in Orange, Texas, got in his car and everything locked, windows rolled up, and his battery gave out. and he ended up dying from the heat because he couldn't get out of his car.
Yeah, and there was a guy in Virginia where we used to live who bought a brand new vehicle, and it stalled. It stalled as he was crossing a railroad track. So he couldn't get it started because he didn't know that this vehicle, you had to step on the brake before you put the vehicle from park into drive. And so while he was trying to figure out how to start this new vehicle, the train was coming and ran into him. So sometimes technology is a bad thing. It really is. So, John, I've got thefinancialstateoftheunion.com on my screen in front of me. That's your website. And why don't you share with us your current thoughts and get into today's class?
Well, I'm going to make a forecast that we're going to run out of time today. I know that's shocking. Oh, there's just so much going on. And I've got a couple of links at the top of my post today. One is for the Watchman Conference, which I'll be speaking at. That's going to be in Dallas, March 31st through April 2nd. I would recommend you get the tickets now. $99, and just a bunch of outstanding speakers there. There's like 4 people from the Skywatch TV group. Great people like L.A. Marzulli, John B. Wells, Pastor Billy Crone, Coach Dave Daubenmeier, Josh Tolley. I mean, it's just to get a 3-day conference with this number and quality of speakers at that price, it's unheard of. So highly recommend, and even more important is that you be there because, as great as the speakers are, for what it's going to take to either fix and or prepare for the future of our country, you need to be with, a group of people like this for you to have any hope. And the second link there, watch movies online without the filth. And I came across this. The site's called VidAngel. And what they do is, there's a lot of movies out there to think, I kind of like to see that, but, and then, you can build your list, see because of the violence, because of the language, because of, the sex they had to throw into it. And, it's true that, the writers and directors and producers have the right to do that. And fortunately, we still have the right to not have to watch that. And what VidAngel has done is come up with a way for you to watch movies, and you get to select what you don't want to see or hear. And you can even break it down into the actual words that you don't want to hear. So if you think some words, that's kind of okay, or you're going to be watching with a more mature group, you can make those types of selections. And then what plays on your TV is shown with your preferences. And just to explain it briefly, because these are the hoops we have to jump through because of the way Congress and the entertainment companies have structured things. In essence, what you're doing is you buy the movie. You don't have to wait for it to arrive or anything. You buy it. You make your actually you've got your defaults for your selections, and that's what you want. You don't have to worry about it again. You watch the movie, and if you sell it back to them within 24 hours, it costs you $1 for standard definition. So, you don't have to go out to a box and rent something, watch it with every bit of filth involved, and then take it back. You get to watch it in the comfort of your own home. You just do another click to sell it back when you're done. and you go to the next one. So I'm really excited about this. And if you click on that link, and you have an opportunity for this too, if you can get 5 other people to use your code, and they watch a movie before the 23rd of December, then you basically get free movies for a year. And, it's not exactly payment, but it is sort of compensation. So I just want to make that disclosure on it. Vincent?
Well, do you have a code, John, that you want to share? Have you done this yet?
Well, it's in that link. So if you click that link, Watch Movies Online Without the Filth, that automatically tells VidAngel that it's me that referred you.
Okay, and then I've done that, and it says movie for one bleeping, and that's the word they use, BLEEPING, dollar, and it says sign up with, but it doesn't say John Regan. Sign up with. Good.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you that. It's just there, but the code is in there so that they would credit me with the referral.
Okay, great. So that sounds interesting, because I can tell you that Mrs. Finelli and I will sometimes watch the blue screen, and we typically watch historical videos or science videos or something with educational content. But there's so much trash. You can have 100 channels of 99% trash. It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So we have to look far and wide to find something that we think is acceptable for our family to watch. And because of the things that you said, the profanity, it's the absolute needless profanity. How did Little House on the Prairie succeed without profanity? I did a great job for years. How did Andy Griffith succeed? How did Superman succeed? How did Columbo succeed without profanity? It's not necessary. It really isn't necessary. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah, like I say, you can take the profanity out. You can take that gratuitous sex scene out, and just enjoy the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way, have you noticed that the police, whenever they engage in telling someone what to do, it's a profanity-laced tirade? Wow. So these are the people that we're supposed to respect. Hard for me to respect them. When we come back, I want to tell you a very quick, short story about something that happened to me with a young man at a store, a farm store. Short story, and I'll just show you how far off track we've gotten. We'll be right back. So I was at a farm supply company over the weekend with our son. And over the weekend I was at a farm supply company with our son. We had our trailer in tow behind the diesel truck. And the idea was we were going to buy some protein supplements for the cows. And they come in these 200-pound tubs. So they're pretty heavy. And I decided to buy 2,400 pounds worth of these to get the cows through the winter, because feeding hay doesn't give them all the nutrition that they need. So there were a couple guys from the farm supply, young guys, big guys, strong guys, helping us load this 2,000-plus pounds of 200-pound tubs on the trailer. And so there was a kind of a little break there, and I said, so are you in school, to one of the guys? And he said, no, I'm taking the semester off. I said, okay. So what are you studying? And he said he wanted to be a cop. And my heart sunk. I thought, gosh, why do you want to do that? And so I said to him, oh, no, you don't have to do that. You can get an honest job. You don't have to be a cop. And he kind of looked at me like he'd never heard anybody say that before. And a few minutes later, I said, so why do you want to be a cop? And he said, well, I like guns. And I didn't say much. I thought, well, a lot of people like guns. And I said, okay. He said, I want to be a sniper. And I said, to kill people? And he had this big grin on his face, like he was smiling, like, yeah. So here you have a young guy, college-age guy, strong guy, good-looking guy, and he wants to be a sniper and kill people. He likes guns. How horrible is that? How horrible is it to be a paid mercenary to kill people? This guy wants to go right into the police force, the law enforcement force, and looks forward to the day that he can just put that guy in his scope, put the crosshairs on him, and squeeze the trigger. That's what this guy wants to do. He's looking forward to it, John. This is crazy.
Did you happen to ask him about his video game habits?
No, I was so disgusted. I just wanted to leave. I couldn't believe it. My son was with me, and he's just looking at me like, oh, man, this could be a long discussion. So I just cut it short. I mean, what can you say to someone like that? What can you say to someone who says, I want to be a killer? I mean, isn't that what I said? That's what snipers do. They kill people. That's what they do. He wants to be a SWAT sniper. Man. You know, if he is an indication of the young people entering what they call law enforcement, we are toast. Because they have a license to put a bead or crosshairs. They've got a license to do this. Put those crosshairs on us. And you know, there's another story that I read about these two police cars that crashed into each other. Someone was trying to evade the police, and there were some shots fired. The police rammed him. Since when do police cars ram a suspect? Since when do they do that? Putting the rest of us in harm's way. Isn't it safer for we, the villagers, to just let the guy go even if he is a suspected criminal? Isn't it safer for the rest of us rather than have a shootout on Main Street or a shootout on the highway or ramming vehicles? I mean, we have given these guys way too much latitude. I'm talking about the Blue Plague. Way too much latitude. This stuff has got to stop. Okay, I'm done with my soapbox.
Well, if it'll make you feel any better, I have an article on how to entertain a bunch of chicks.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good.
And so this farmer had some bored chickens. So what he did is he put a little kid's xylophone up on the side of the coop, and guess what? The chickens are entertaining themselves.
So he just nailed this on the side of the coop, and there's a red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet colored xylophone keys, and the chicks are just pecking at it. You know, if I see one of those at a flea market or something, if I ever get a chance to go to one, I'm going to buy one and hang it in our chicken pen. See what they think of it. We'll be right back. Captain John Regan's with us, U.S. Air Force Reserves retired. The website, thefinancialstateoftheunion.com. Captain John Regan, back to you.
Well, you know, we've talked about things like fluoride and aspartame before, and Dr. Shealy's gone in depth about it. And there's a couple of new articles on these. Fluoride, officially a neurotoxin. And this comes from a paper published in the Lancet, which is a well-known, highly respected medical journal. So fluoride is now officially classified as a neurotoxin. And if you want to try and convince your bureau rats that neurotoxin really shouldn't be in the water supply, there's new research to help out in that. And then, oh boy, you think it can't get worse with aspartame. The new study that has over 2 million person years of data has correlated some different problems, and some of it depends on what your natural gender is. 42% higher leukemia risk in men and women, 102%, so double multiple myeloma risk in men, and a 31% higher non-Hodgkin lymphoma risk in men. So those diet drinks can cost you in a number of ways, and this is just the latest. Vincent?
You know, John, we've been talking about that for years, that diet drinks are dangerous. We've even talked about airplane crashes that have been traced to aspartame, the sugar substitute. But going back to fluoride, I wanted to read this. Now, this is from this report, this post that you've mentioned, which is called, I don't even know how to pronounce it, Koala Peel's blog. And it's on your website. It says that now a report from the world's oldest and most prestigious medical journal, The Lancet, has officially classified fluoride as a neurotoxin in the same category as arsenic, lead, and mercury. I just want to make sure that was absolutely clear, that arsenic is classified as a neurotoxin in the same category as arsenic, lead, and mercury. So, class, it's really simple. If you want to brush your teeth, and I suggest you consider doing that, why don't you consider using baking soda? And that's what I do. That's what Mrs. Finelli does. And actually, she even brushes her teeth with coconut oil. John, have you tried that?
I've not tried the coconut oil, but I do a combination of practically half baking soda, half xylitol, with a little bit of salt thrown into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every once in a while, I will not, it's more than once in a while, I'll add salt as well. But salt's pretty abrasive, so keep that in mind. So it works great. Really works great. And your teeth will feel like you've just gone to the dentist for a cleaning when you try it. I think you'll be pleased with the results. And it's very inexpensive. A box of baking sodas, I think, is about 50 cents. So it's not like this is a recommendation that's going to cost very much money. I'm glad you brought this up, John. Thank you.
And you're talking about the list of neurotoxins there. If you think about vaccines, there's still a number of vaccines that have mercury, and there's actually some vaccines that have aspartame in it for some reason. You don't know, why does a vaccine need to be sweet when they're injecting it into you? So getting that directly into your bloodstream, bypassing what protection your digestive tract offers.
Yeah. And we've been doing some reports about vaccines, and we've had Tracy Caesar on, Lauren from Ohio. We've been talking about this, and I'll tell you what, I'm not interested in vaccinations. And I've told the story a couple of times about my good friend Paul. He's about 80 years old, and he had cancer, and he was going to go to the doctors the next day. And I said, Paul, whatever you do, they're going to want you to take a flu shot. Please don't do it. Please, please, please. And he said, okay. And I said, no, promise me. He said, okay, I promise. And he came back. I talked to him right after his doctor's appointment, and he told me that I was going to be mad at him. And he said, doctor told him that he needed that flu shot. So he took the flu shot. He was dead in 30 days. So, and he was sick. I mean, as soon as he was getting around, yes, he had cancer, but he was able to walk around with a walker or a cane. And he got that flu shot. He was bedridden, and he died in bed. Didn't recover from it. It's absolutely horrible. Needless, senseless. And I guess that's how we take care of our senior citizens. We help them die quickly, painfully, horrifically. What's next, John?
Well, I have this listed as coming to America. It's a report out of Venezuela. They've been suffering some really bad hyperinflation there, and it's probably only going to get worse. Mm-hmm. And there's, if you scroll down a little bit, there's a blue box that has a number of quotes. And like I say, keep in mind it's a very fluid situation, so some of them might not totally line up on amounts because just a day or two difference you can get different answers. But they're talking about Venezuelans wait in 6 ATM lines for enough to get enough cash out to buy rice. And the one quote, I had to go to 6 different ATMs just to get 6,000 bolivars. A package of rice would cost 3,500, which would be more than half the daily withdrawal limit. Another quote, 6,000 bolivars was worth just $1.30. And another quote, it would take almost 6 minutes for it to spit out an ATM 3,500 bolivars at a shot. And it's a 3-inch stack worth $5.32. I think, you can see that here. I would imagine that they would try to go more the cashless route and force more people into basically using their phones or their plastic to make purchases. So we may not see quite the same thing here, but it's going to be the same effect.
I can just see the villagers clamoring because one of the quotes in this article says, sometimes I go to 5 ATMs without getting anything at all because the devices are busted or bare. And I take that to mean the ATMs are broken, not functional, or bare, I believe, means without any currency in them to be dispensed. And I can just see the villagers saying to the government, you got to do something, you got to do something, we're starving. And then the government says, okay, well, we're having trouble rounding up all these pieces of paper with denominations on them. So what we'll do is we'll go to that digital currency, and that way we won't run out because there's an infinite supply of digits. And I can just see that happening, can't you? I mean...
Yes.
And I don't know if I haven't been able to figure out in my mind if that would be instantly inflationary, switching to a digital currency, if you will, or whether it would take a little bit longer for people to realize that they're just creating more and more and more and more digits or releasing more and more digits, further devaluing the purchasing power of each of those digits. So I don't know if inflation would happen faster or slower, but to me, it's an absolute certainty that it's inflationary.
It's going to be interesting to watch because when we look at the Weimar Republic, they set the price of the mark twice a day, and people would get paid twice a day because the value would fall so much during the day. So just imagine today where we've now have these computers where it can be continually changing 24 hours a day. And how are companies going to keep up with paying people? They basically have a staff just dedicated to their weekly or biweekly payroll.
Let's say someone buys something from China today or some other foreign country from America. And there's an agreement that, let's say it's 25% down before the product is manufactured. And then the balance of 75% when the shipment is put on the boat. And let's say the Chinese, you agree on a price, it's in writing, and then the Chinese say, great, we're going to make it. And then just before they put it on the boat, they go, whoa. We need more. We need more currency from the Americans because the change in the relationship between China and the United States. What are we going to do? What would we do if we were a small company purchasing goods from China that way? What kind of leverage would we have when it costs so much to go to China? We don't speak Chinese, and we really don't know our way around. How do you survive that? That's a huge problem. And that's one that we depend on our governments to keep our currencies stable. Keep that in mind. I can see this as another big problem coming our way. Captain John Regan's with thefinancialstateoftheunion.com or EZE33.org. We're going into a commercial break. We'll be right back. Why don't we just look at Venezuela and see what it's going to be like here? Long lines for food. The government outlaws preparing. They say that you can't prepare. Then they put in a fingerprint system that you have to register. Then you have to have your fingerprints when you purchase whatever your allotment is for food. And then they say, you know what, it's not working. You better grow your own food. That's what governments do. They make mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. And the United States is just one prime example of not getting anything right. John Regan?
And why don't we take a trip to California? Pension problems continue. A Stanford study shows that California pensions are underfunded by $1 trillion, which translates into almost $93,000 per household. And that was in 2015. And what we've learned is that 70% of the households in America have $1,000 or less in savings. So I'd say that the odds of extracting more money from the people are kind of slim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, John, what do you think? Do you have a feel for what will happen to some of these underfunded pension plans, because they're all over the country, not just California?
Well, there's only two ways they can handle it. They can either cut the amount of money that the pensions promise to pay, which makes for hardship on the people that were depending on it, or they, and for the public pensions, they attempt to raise taxes to cover it. And I think the people are so broke right now, they wouldn't have much luck with that. When you start dealing with the private pension side of things, it's, again, you either reduce the amount that's paid out or the plan goes bankrupt. It's not pretty either way.
So a pension is a contract, and it's an agreement between those who have contributed, those employees, and those who benefit from the pensions. Breach of contract, fraud. I can see a lot of legal problems, and actually, I can see. Remember the term "short bankers were hung from tall trees." Remember that term? I can see that coming. I can't.
And keep in
I'm
mind
not advocating it.
These pension problems are just a few $1 trillion. The Social Security and Medicare problem is over $200 trillion. It's just the pension problem is now staring us in the face.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about politicians later on in this broadcast, aren't we? And how they're exempt, right? From prosecution and from spying.
The UK just recently passed some very draconian spying laws on their citizens. But guess what? The politicians are exempted. So if you want to snoop on a politician, you have to have a warrant approved by the prime minister. So it's the typical two classes. We make the laws, but we don't have to obey them.
John, I can see how this might play out. So we in the honest media decide that we want to see what some of these politicians are up to. So we follow them around, and we get our cameras and their video. We video these guys, and we catch them in the act. And then we put it on the internet, right? and we show it. It's not like we're showing something that we made up. We just get the video or the audio and put it on the internet, and we expose these politicians. And I can just see it now that the person who exposes the corruption of the politicians becomes arrested for spying, some kind of espionage within the country, being considered a traitor, right, for exposing corruption. I can just see it happening. John, we hit the top of the hour. We're going to go into a news break, some more commercials to pay the bills, and then we'll be right back. What's coming up next, John?
We've got some spy tech and a few other little things.
My favorite. My favorite. The thing I love to hate, spy technology. Captain John Regan's with us. We'll be right back. Well, that was fast. Hour number 1 went so quickly. This is hour number 2. Captain John Regan. Captain John Regan?
Well, I want to quickly talk about the employment report from last week. We're not going to have time to get to the actual information, so I've provided the links. You probably heard that they lowered the unemployment rate down to 4.6%. What they're not telling you is they took nearly 500,000 people out of the workforce to do that. And the multiple job holders of part-time jobs went up. And that's in the what they're calling the fake news. Now, in the real fake news, they're saying that the economy is fixed. So, Obama's fixed everything so that anything that happens from here on is Trump's fault. That's how they're setting things up in the mainstream media.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be delightful not hearing his voice very much, just getting him out of the news. So we just don't have to look at his picture, don't have to hear his voice. I'm looking forward to him just playing golf and more golf and just not causing any more problems. Wouldn't that be fun? Just have him just go on vacation and not have to see or hear much of him anymore. Wouldn't that be great?
There's talk about him starting his own TV show.
Yeah. In his own business. I mean, yeah. I was thinking about this guy is brilliant. Here we have a community organizer who's going to start his own TV show and his own business. It's kind of like Hillary Clinton. The only reason I think people tolerated her and gave her money is because of her political clout. And so what does Barry bring to the? Who would want to watch Barry? I mean, what would he possibly bring to the table that would want us to watch or pay attention to him or his business? I can't think of anything. I really can't. Other than to watch, a flop.
For the hour 2 links, I'd meant to get to this last week, and somehow I left it off the list. I've got it labeled criminal left. And, when you look at what's going on in America and the divide we have, and you look at the rhetoric and the actions that are taken, and I haven't found the, I guess there's a link in there that gets back to the study. It divides the link between criminal behavior, which includes violence, and your political ideology. So the categories are very conservative, middle, liberal, and very liberal. And it turns out the very conservative through middle don't really exhibit, criminal behavior. The liberal goes up a bit, and the very liberal is just, like 3, probably more like 4 times the amount positive as the very conservative is negative on this chart. So, when you see the violence, and we've seen this in the past too. Much of that's coming from these hardcore leftists. We've seen it with communism and socialism and all the other leftist-isms, and now we have a scientific study showing that as well.
So, John, are we saying that if someone is really, really liberal, we should, if we're around them, we should hold on to our wallet? Is that what we're saying?
It may even be worse than that. And I guess this helps explain too why they feel the way they do about conservatives, because they're just projecting the way they are on everybody else. So the violence and the destruction that they cause, they're really mirroring what's inside them. When you've got these, you hear the liberals say, you shouldn't have guns because of the violence. It's because, they're the ones that would be using them the wrong way, not the responsible people.
Yeah, like the Clintons wanting to control guns, ultimately ban them from We the Villagers, and just type in Clinton, Arkansas, Clinton, murder, Clinton, death, and you'll see that there are a lot of stories about people who have died as friends of the Clintons. Kyle in Montana, welcome. You're on with Captain John Regan.
Yeah, good morning, Vince and John. These 2 hours are going by so fast, I decided I'd call in real quick before they got over. But I was wondering, have you noticed, John, that for the first time in 8 years, about 3 or 4 days ago, I actually heard the mainstream news mention that they had taken this 500 million people off the roll for the unemployment rate, and that's why it dropped. It's the first time in 8 years I've heard that. Was maybe about, I think it was 3 or 4 days ago.
I had not seen that in the mainstream.
Yeah, I just heard it on Fox News. I couldn't believe it. That was just, it was stunning to me. But anyway, I was wondering, John, I didn't know if you was going to get to it, and I'll ask this question and then hang up and listen. But on Truth Frequency Radio, X Squared program is called it. The guy that runs it is called Brooks Agnew. But anyway, he come up with this information that they're still pushing for a no-fly zone in Syria, fixing to trying to start World War III before Trump can take office.
I saw the legislation on that, and it's probably not a 0% possibility, but I don't see that ratcheting up in the time that's left.
Okay.
Because what is calling for is a study so that the president could issue this no-fly zone, and that just wouldn't be able to be done in the number of weeks we have left.
Okay. I was wondering also if you had heard about that House Bill 34, I think it is, about the psychiatric drugs and mandatory, that they have a designation in there for the mandatory vaccinations of people with that you're considered, if you're against being vaccinated or anything like that, they put you in this category, and now where you can be force vaccinated.
I know that there's been some legislation introduced. I haven't had a chance to dive into the details, but that's what they're trying to do. And we did have a discussion, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that much like they showed on the last ship, they're looking at making viruses infective so that it can be spread around and they don't even have to give you a shot. So,
All right, John. Thanks. I'll hang up, let you get going. It's 4th hour's over.
Thanks very much, Kyle. You know, John, who are these people who are telling us that we have to take unknown potions with that we don't even see the labels on by people we don't know, injecting them into our bloodstream? Who are these people? It's totally unacceptable, and I'm not taking them. I mean, I am not going to take. No one's going to inject me with my permission, and if I have any control, I will absolutely make sure that that does not happen. I would consider that a threat against my life. And if someone wants to inject our family, I would consider that a threat against our family's life. And when we're threatened, we can respond with force in the state of Missouri. So keep that in mind, class, that I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that if someone's coming at me with a needle and I don't know what's in it, and it's not with my permission, I would consider that a death threat. Very much as if someone is coming at me with a knife or a screwdriver, ready to stab me. I would consider those all threats against my life, and I will act appropriately.
Let's just review quickly some things we've covered prior. There was that study that had to come out with a correction and say that it's the liberals that are mentally ill. We've also talked about how the psychopaths and sociopaths are in the leadership of government and corporations. We've seen from the WikiLeaks emails the satanic nature, at least in the Democrat leadership, and I'm sure most of the Republican is in that category too. And if it's allowed to come out, I think we're going to see a wave, not just for the United States, but in the political leadership throughout the world. This pedophilia and likely even child sacrifice.
Tomorrow we're going to have Tomorrow we're going to have. I don't even know how to describe this. We are going to announce a theory on this broadcast that will shock a lot of us. And let me leave it at that. But it has to do with vaccinations. And I think it's well thought out. And I think there's a lot of merit to it. And we'll be talking more about vaccinations tomorrow. And why? And why would the elite want to make sure that everyone's vaccinated? That's coming up tomorrow. Captain John Regan, I'll be right back. Captain John Regan's with us. John, about these vaccines, there's a website. I just posted it on USA Preparedness. It's called National Vaccine Information Center. And there's a post that says current 31 doses of 12 federally recommended vaccines, no exemptions. Current Virginia law requires minor children attending public or private daycare centers or schools, as well as homeschooled children, to receive up to 31 doses of federally recommended vaccines administered according to the CDC childhood vaccine schedule, unless parents submit, number one, a statement from a state licensed physician or nurse practitioner that one or more of the required vaccines would be detrimental to the health of the child, or, number two, a signed affidavit from a parent that one or more of the required vaccines conflicts with religious tenets or practices. In order to grant a medical vaccine exemption, HB 1342 would force doctors and nurse practitioners to adhere to a narrow federal vaccine contraindications that include 99.99% of children from vaccine exemptions. And it would force parents to violate their conscience by denying a religious belief vaccine exemption, including cases where a child has already suffered a vaccine reaction, has been disabled, or has a sibling who's been injured or died after being vaccinated. And it says that only 1% of Virginia children have vaccine exemptions now. Pretty serious stuff. And so these people are determined to make sure that we are jabbed with their potions and concoctions and chemicals, even to our known detriment. And seriously, do you know anyone who has gotten a vaccination who has not had a reaction to it, a serious reaction? Do you know anyone? Let me just ask you that question. Well, so I'm not taking one.
You can, especially for small numbers of it, but the Amish don't have the autism problem. They don't do vaccines, and it would be great if they'd repeal the law that Reagan signed back in '86 that made it to where you cannot sue vaccine companies for adverse reactions. That's why you see all these lawsuits against certain pharmaceuticals when they find out how much damage they're doing, but you never see one about vaccines. And I think it's high time we change that back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it would be nice to hold politicians individually responsible for their actions so that they would not be immune from litigation or prosecution. That would be great. And can you imagine? They'd actually have to behave and do the right thing. What's next?
This one probably should be categorized under button pushers. Where the money goes. Senator Langford, the junior senator from Oklahoma, released a publication, and then there's a link in the article where you can get that PDF detailing 100 ways, and of course that's just a few examples of government waste. And, one of the good ones is the National Science Foundation invested more than $412,000 in research on a paper arguing that glaciers are best studied using feminist theories.
Yeah, absolutely outrageous. That's just one, right?
That's just one. It's while we have to make decisions on on our budget, and in some cases between heat and eat, the federal government doesn't have that restriction. They'll spend what they want to.
Can you share some more with us? I'm downloading this page, and I'm on page 2 of 154.
Multiple grants totaling $500,000 to find the connection between religion, politics, and cemeteries in 12th century Iceland.
That sounds like it makes great reading. I can't wait for the movie to come out. Captain John Regan, I'll be right back. We're at the financialstateoftheunion.com. Captain John Regan's with us. John, what's next?
I've got Diamonds Power Forever. A little play on the Diamonds Are Forever. Turns out that they've found a way to take some radioactive material and mesh it with man-made diamonds and create a battery that lasts for 5,000 years. And when you start thinking about the low-power computers that we've talked about that could last for years on a AA battery, combine it with a diamond radioactive battery that can last for thousands of years. The ways those could be used for surveillance, both inside and outside the body, are amazing, and may even go a step further. We just talked about a few weeks ago about using diamonds to store data. So it's getting very, very interesting in the data world.
And were you going to talk about that combination of memory and a resistor?
Well, we'll be getting to that.
Where
guess we could go ahead and pull that one up now. Dawn of the memristor age. The
memory and a resistor.
Yeah, we've been using transistors for computers, and basically what those are, they're switches. You know, you can think about it like the light switch, on, off, and you cram millions of those on a chip, and then there's the logic involved, and it's pretty straightforward. But the memristor is a bit different. It was conceptualized in 1971, but now Hewlett-Packard built the first one in 2008, and it's starting to get to the point where we may see computers based on them by around 2020. And instead of working with electrons, they're working with ions. And this gets to be quite interesting when you consider some of the things that we've talked about with the quantum computers. With the transistor, like I said, the switch, so it's the binary mode. It's on or off. The memristor can have several states. So it can be 0, 1, or something in between. And it may not be the infinite number of in-betweens that the quantum computers have, but it would be a number of different states which could allow for some interesting increases in computing power into a smaller space, which is just what we need, right? And
Yeah. So
I also thought just one more thing. Down under the headline where it says "The race is on," simply called "The Machine," and I thought that was interesting because if you watch Person of Interest, what do they call that super artificial intelligence? The machine.
Mm-hmm. The reason I mentioned this memory resistor, or the device we're talking about, is because it sounds like it can, instead of on or off, as you mentioned, it can have these values in between, like 1/4, or 1/2, or 3/4, or 100%. The whole. And then you combine that with the diamond nuclear battery. Now you've got a way more powerful potential for computing with the memory resistor, and the potential for, darn near infinite life expectancy. 5,000 years is a long time. Planet may not be around 5,000 more years, the way we're damaging it. So these evil people are probably pretty excited about using the technology of this memory resistor and this nuclear waste diamond battery for even more tracking and spying and invading our lives. Until we've had enough.
Let me throw another level on top of there. There's been talk about using DNA for computation, and with the DNA, it's kind of like having a double bit, because you've got the A, C, T, and G molecules that make up the DNA. So instead of the choice of 0 or 1 that the computer has, you have a choice of 4 values as you're reading the DNA strand. Well, instead of using DNA, if you use one of these memristors that just has those options, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and 1, you can now do all those DNA type calculations just using the electronics instead of having to go to the biology and having to read it.
Quite frightening as the possibilities. Okay.
And again, it's one of those exponential things, so that the more options you have to put that into, the quicker that chart, the hockey stick you see goes up. So it's again interesting and frightening.
Yesterday I was thinking about the complexities of life, and I've been talking with some of our instructors. They're saying, boy, everything's getting more complicated. Everything's getting harder to do, more complicated. Everything. I'm not exaggerating. Everything I work on is more complicated. It takes me longer than it should. And I was thinking, how would life be different if Bill Gates hadn't released his operating system, DOS, and eventually Windows? And how different would life be without Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, without the Apple I computer, then the Apple II computer, and then the Mac, and then the Mac operating system, and the natural evolution into smaller and smaller and smaller, faster, faster, faster. Now where we have computers on our, on our phones, those of us who have them. How different would life be? And I long for the years of the 1950s, where we just played nicely together. We weren't beating up each other and spying on our neighbors, and we didn't have all of this strife. It was really kind of nice. And so I've got to place a lot of the blame for what has happened on Apple, Verizon, Microsoft, and the likes of those companies who have gotten in bed with the government to build backdoors, secret compartments, secret access, storage of information in smaller and smaller and smaller places. Even though many of these companies might have thought they were doing a good thing at one time, they absolutely had to realize they were in bed with evil. They had to realize it. And so I hold them with blame and accountable, at least in my opinion. What's next?
Well, if you think Sodom and Gomorrah were bad, what's on the way is going to be even more disgusting. I've got an article out of the Daily Mail about sex robots that would let couples have threesomes without getting emotionally attached. And we've, as bad as that is, combine it with the virtual reality where you can basically have sex with a person that looks however you want them to look. And in fact, you could probably have a sex robot that would switch back and forth between being male and female. Just totally disgusting on where this is going. And while
who thinks this stuff up? This is absolutely nuts. And class, why don't we just bypass this whole thing about this sex with robots, and why don't these companies just say, let's forget this step, let's go to the implant. So you don't have to have sex with robots anymore. We'll go right to, you're just thinking you're having sex. You just plug in, set your dial to whatever that setting is, and then now you believe you're having sex with whomever. Just forget the reality of it and just make it all an illusion. Plug in that or do it wirelessly. Have that implant in your brain and have that signal sent from your computer that you are having sex, and there you go. This is crazy. Absolutely crazy.
And just to put the biblical aspect into it, it gets beyond the Old Testament rule of the physical act. It's like Jesus talked about. If you've thought about it, if it's in your heart, you're guilty of it. So it doesn't matter that it's a robot. It's still taking you into that area of sexual immorality.
Wouldn't it be interesting to know how the people who create these machines think politically? Are they liberal? Are they leftist? Or not? It'd be nice to know.
And again, it's going to be interesting as more and more of the emails come out, just how sickening the sexual appetites are before getting to robots.
Yeah. Let's look at Barney Frank.
Well, let's go to a different type of disgusting. Credit cards can be hacked in just 6 seconds. Turns out the way that they generate numbers, hackers can figure out all the details using multiple computers, and it's quite frighteningly easy to carry out.
We're talking about hacking a credit card account number within 6 seconds, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll talk more about that when we come back. Captain John Regan, thefinancialstateoftheunion.com. Class, I think rkshows.com has set a record. December 10 and 11, there are 6 gun shows that they're hosting. Oklahoma City in Oklahoma, Knoxville, Tennessee, Germantown, Tennessee, Colorado Springs, Colorado, Marietta, Georgia, Topeka, Kansas. That's Oklahoma City, Knoxville, Tennessee, Germantown, Tennessee, Colorado Springs, Marietta, Georgia, and Topeka, Kansas. That's December 10 and 11. Also, they've got an upcoming preparedness event. That's in Pensacola, Florida, December 17 and 18. December 17 and 18. John, you were talking about the 6-second credit card number hack. Please continue.
And basically, because of the way the Visa payment system works, if you couldn't do this with a single website, you have to go to multiple websites and then put all the information together, and that's how this hack works. But it lets them get the card number, the expiration date, and the security code for any Visa, credit, or debit card. And there's no real way to protect yourself on this.
Now, John, do they physically have to get, can they do this all remotely? Can they just type in a person's number and get that card?
All remotely, because what they're doing is the first few digits identify the card type and bank, and there's also some digits in there that are checksum, so you can actually have a very low number, relatively speaking, guessing the account number. And of course, the more digits you start off with, the less time this would take. But expiration date, those typically only go out a few years, and most of the time it's within a year or two. So those are not a lot of combinations. And then the security code's only 3 digits, so there's only 1,000 possible combinations on that. So computers can be trying these out on many different websites, and as like I say, as it goes through and fails, it knows which ones don't work, and finally gets down to the point where it has the valid information. And with today's computers, it can be done in 6 seconds.
John, on the financialstateoftheunion.com in the news tab for today's resources, you've got a link under the financial section called Underwater for Life. Would you mind if we discuss that? That is absolutely the most horrifying piece of news I've seen financially for those of us who purchase automobiles new with a loan. Absolutely unbelievably frightening.
Sure. Let me just quickly talk about the man-machine interface, the last one under hour 2. Life is based on carbon. Computers are based on silicon. Well, they've now got bacteria that binds silicon and carbon together. And I love this quote from Nobel Prize-winning chemist at Cornell. Poor silicon, abundant in the earth, but rejected by the biosphere for its wondrous evolutionary tinkering. The technocrats are just totally disgusting. And the underwater for life, cars have been going up and the cash for clunkers, made everything worse because it got rid of a lot of nice used cars, which forced us to go more and more to the high-tech cars with more spy tech in them. And because the cars are so expensive, you have to go into longer periods to pay off, and you end up with a negative equity balance. And now those negative equity balances are being rolled into new car purchases. And
so that means that if you're going to trade your car in, you're going to owe money typically. Typical trade-ins have a trade-in balance negative almost $5,000. So you trade that new car in for a newer car, a brand new one, and your dealer says, okay, it's only going to cost you $5,000 to get rid of your just purchased new car. It's unbelievable. That's if you want to read about it, it's at thefinancialstateoftheunion.com.